Hello and welcome back to FM Wonderkids, the home of Wonderkids here on YouTube, but also the home of Euro 2020. Today I'm going to be giving you 5 tips to help you win the Euro 2020 fantasy football games. Maybe you're in a cash league with your friends or your work colleagues, or you just want to get one over on your mini league rivals. Hopefully this video is going to be useful to you. I've read a couple of articles, I've watched a couple of videos, I've compiled my 5 top tips to help you win Euro 2020 fantasy football. Now if you do like the video at any point, please don't forget to smash the like button, hit subscribe if you are new. We've got Euro 2020 content going out across my 3 channels, so I'll link them all in the video description. You can go and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you don't miss one of those. Tip number 1 is captaincy. Now in Euro 2020 fantasy football, there's one thing to kind of be very clear on. A match day is completely different to an actual day, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll just load my team up here on the screen for you to see and then scroll down towards the fixtures. So you get unlimited transfers up until the first actual day, which is Friday the 11th. Then after the first actual day, Friday the 11th, you get a substitution window. Now at this point you can change your captain. So potentially you could captain someone from Italy or Turkey on Friday the 11th, and if they don't score you points, you could change your captaincy then to someone who plays on Saturday the 12th, a Wales player, a Switzerland player, Denmark, Finland, Belgium or Russian player. Now you can do that every single day right up until the end of the match day, which again is totally different to an actual day. You can see here match day 2, if I click on that, that'll bring us over to the second round of fixtures, which comprises of several different days. So you got Saturday the 19th, Friday the 18th, Thursday the 17th and Wednesday the 16th. Picking a really strong captain for each actual day could give you a huge advantage over others. It essentially gives you 3 or 4 bites of the proverbial cherry. Captain Gareth Bale on Wednesday the 16th in match day 2, Captain Kevin De Bruyne against Denmark, still on match day 2 but on actual day 7 or whatever it is. The process then could continue all the way through, so it's important really to bear that in mind when you're picking your actual squad. Have you got a captain for every single day, even if it's not a totally optimal player like Ronaldo on day 1, Kane on day 2, Mbappe on day 3. I think it would be important at least to have a player in every actual day, so you can just wing the captaincy on them in case they get a clean sheet and a goal or something like that. And then happy days, you can move on to the next match day with your captaincy points banked. Tip number 2 is chip strategy. Now if you look at this in terms of FPL, there are only actually 7 game weeks or 7 match days in this tournament, and we're given a wild card and a limitless, which is essentially a free hit but with unlimited budget. Now that sounds absolutely huge to people who play FPL. 2 chips, 7 game weeks, plus the amount of transfers, free transfers you get, 5 before the final, 5 before the semis, 3 before the quarters, etc. If you add to that the unlimited transfers you get before the round of 16, that's basically a second wildcard. So you've got 2 wildcards and a free hit essentially in this game. Chip strategy is going to be so important, and there's a few different schools of thought which I've discovered by reading articles, etc. and watching videos. Number 1 is basically play all your chips in the first 3 match days. So it's the group stages. The reason you would do that is because you're targeting the weakest teams in the competition who before the round of 16 will have already been knocked out. So you could get like Ronaldo against the Hungarian defense, etc., which you ain't going to be able to get in the semi-finals and the final. So using your wildcard and your limitless in the first 3 match days could provide huge upside. Now the downside to spaffing all your chips in the first 3 game weeks is obviously the quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals are going to have very limited numbers of teams. In fact, 8 teams in the quarters, 4 teams in the semis and 2 teams in the final, for example. So if you haven't got your chips, you may end up not being able to field a full team. And this might not be a huge damage to your rank essentially, because it's essentially a blank game week. If you look at it in terms of FPL, you've got 4 blank game weeks at the end of the season with just your 3 actual game weeks at the start. So if you think about it like that, saving chips for the blank game weeks might be advantageous if you're not able to field a full 11 in those weeks. The counter argument to that would be, that there's not much upside in these last few games of the season. So you've got the final, which might be tight, 1 or 2 goals, semi-finals, only a couple of teams, only a limited pool of players to choose from in those teams. So that's where the difficulty lies. School of thought number 2 is basically to use either your limitless or your wild card in the group stages, but save your wild card essentially until the quarterfinals. Now at the quarterfinals, you only get 3 free transfers. That's not a lot considering you're losing 8 teams from the competition. Before the round of 16, you're losing 8 teams before the competition as well, and they're giving you unlimited transfers, so it's essentially a wild card. Whereas after that, you're losing 8 teams and you're only getting 3 free transfers. So wild carding then could be a great idea, because if you've already spaffed your chips, you're not going to be able to field full teams. Probably. That brings us on to tip number 3, which is to target the weaker teams. Now we mentioned this when we talked about chip strategy, and the weaker teams are definitely in the first 3 match days. So using at least 1 chip during these match days, I think, is definitely the way to go. Teams like Hungary, Finland, Poland, Slovakia, North Macedonia, and even Scotland could be teams which ship a lot of goals if you look at the numbers and you look at how they performed during qualifying. Stack that against the fact that some of these teams are playing against really good attacking opposition, and that could be the way to secure yourself maximum points in this game. Target the weaker teams and pit the better teams and the better players against the leaky defences. That leads us on to tip number 4, which is be engaged. How do you know who these weaker defences are? Well, watch some football games. Look at some statistics. These are the 2 things which are going to give you the best idea on how teams perform. Fantasy football is essentially about predicting the future, and the best way to predict the future is to look at the past. How have these teams performed in the past? What have they done in the past that might suggest they do the similar thing in the future? Look at things like goals conceded, expected goals conceded for these teams during the qualifying stages and during friendlies leading up to this tournament. Goal scorers, who's scored the most goals for these teams, who's provided the most assists, etc. One of the great things about Euro Fantasy Football as well in terms of engagement is the fact that you need to be making changes every single day. This tournament is very dynamic. You've got games on multiple times a day. You need to be making your captain substitutions, you need to be making your actual substitutions, and you need to be making transfers as well. So it's really important that you're engaged with the game. You're watching the games, you're watching the football, looking at stats. This is how you're going to win the game. Tip number 5 is a bit of a cliche, but it's play your own game. Try not to be influenced by how other people are playing. I know this video is about kind of like telling you how to play, but it's just guidelines. I'm just giving you ideas and things that I've seen from my experience and from what I've seen and read. But ultimately, it's up to you. If you can come up with your own strategy and if you've spotted a kind of opportunity, go for it. Don't be put off by what others are doing. You can see I've got Cristiano Ronaldo in my team here. And if you click on his name, you can see his ownership. Don't be swayed by that. 24% of the people in the game might be wrong. You might not need Ronaldo in your team. You might not need Harry Kane, for example, who, if we click on him, we can see that he's owned by 42% of the game. Don't worry about ownership. If you've got a guy who's 0.5% owned and he's a better pick than Harry Kane, guess what? You're going to do really, really, really well. Guys, that's it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed the 5 tips. If you want to join our league, the code and the link is in the video description. Do hit a like if you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe if you're new. Across the whole 3 channels, like I said, which I will link below. See you next time.